I'm Sarah.
And I'm Sophie.
Join us weekly as we share our insights and personal stories to inspire, motivate, and entertain you from a Gen Z
and a Millennial perspective. We'd love it if you could click the button below to like and subscribe and hit that little bell so you never miss us.
If you are listening on Apple Music or Spotify, a 5-star rating would make our day.
So tune in, turn up the volume, and join the conversation.
Hello.
Welcome back, everybody. Thanks for joining us again on this week's episode of Sisterhood Sessions.
Today we're going to be talking about happiness. Doing a little deep dive, I guess.
A little deep dive into happiness, more specifically into the way we pursue happiness and kind of getting, hopefully, to the root of how we find long-term happiness and satisfaction in our lives.
Sustainable happiness. And also a little look at how different cultures prioritize it, or if they do it all. Alrighty.
Let's get started. I guess the best way to start is to talk about, first of all, what is happiness? And how do we, I guess,
define
it? She always helps me with words.
You help me with words more.
We help each other with words. Yeah. I guess the best way to define happiness is in two separate categories. And the first one would be the balance of emotions. And so whether you experience more positive emotions than you do negative emotions. And I guess the second way is how you measure your life happiness.
I also think there's a ton of different ways to define happiness, and each are super personal as well. The way we think of it could be different from the way you think of it. That's kind of the beauty of it.
It is the beauty of it.
So, because you've lived a little everywhere, she's been around the world. You've told me a bit before about what cultures do to prioritize happiness and like help foster relationships. So tell me and the world a little bit about that.
So for those of you who don't know, I had a pretty unusual upbringing, I guess. I spent my childhood in Asia, and I spent my teenage years in Australia, and I spent a lot of my 20s in Europe. And I guess that's given me kind of like a broader understanding of what different cultures value in terms of how they live their lives and how they achieve happiness. And living in North America now, it's been really interesting to see the differences in how people live their lives. I guess I always think of my time in Sweden when I think about happiness, because I love this particular aspect of their culture. So they have this daily tradition where they meet in the afternoon with either family members or friends and have what they call a fika. And essentially you get together with your loved ones and you have coffee and you have pastries. The French do it too. They call it goûter. But living in Sweden, it was like it's something that happens every single day. And it's such a special moment where you sit and you debrief and you talk about things and you have those human interactions that are so essential to our happiness. But all over Europe, even, they do versions of that. So in Italy, it's super common to have very large family dinners. In Spain, you have your afternoon siesta, and then you have sunset drinks after work. And in France, again, if you are wandering the streets of Paris, after, after 6, 7 p.m., whether it's a Tuesday or a Thursday or a Saturday, the streets and the cafes and the bars are filled with friends and, kids and their parents just having a coffee, just having a glass of wine, and just really prioritizing those moments together.
Mm-hmm. Really prioritizing relationships and filling your life with a bit of love and community.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that really contrasts North America.
Mm-hmm.
Like growing up, it's always been kind of the expectation. You go to school, then you have your career job. With that, you settle down, get married, have kids, you have a family, and you're expected to almost just be happy with that, or happiness will come along with that. And I don't feel like that's very much the case. Like there's no emphasis on focus, like having that daily happiness, like finding the little moments. Like sure, we have happy hour, I suppose, but like it's not really the same thing. It
doesn't feel the same.
It's not. I think it's North America's version of trying to do what Europe does, but it's not. It doesn't have the same effect. It's kind of, you work your weekdays, maybe you go home to your family, or you go home to your own place, whatever it may be, and then you save like the weekends for going out and having fun, but then you overdo it to compensate for the lack of fun you've had within that past week.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very much depriving yourself of so much and then trying to make up for it in like little bits. But then you kind of are in like a cycle that's exhausting. Like you end up over drinking or whatever it may be, going out and partying, getting super drunk, and the next day you're hungover and you don't feel great.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to continue on your work week and repeat that the next week. But I don't think that's, genuine happiness. Obviously, there can be like fun and, experiences to having those nights every once and again. But to have that be like your weekly tradition, I don't think is great.
Mm-mm.
And then there's also, the matter of you work at 9 to 5, or you're supposed to, but that's also become unrealistic for a lot of people now. Like, North America is becoming so expensive, so you're having to overcompensate and work more jobs, work like closer to 80-hour weeks, which is unlivable. And if you're constantly stressed about, food on the table, a roof over your head, you're not going to feel happy.
This is the one thing I loved about Australian culture, is that 9 to 5 means 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. There's this toxic culture in North America where you don't leave the office until after your boss leaves.
Or until all your work is done, even if that'll extend into the next day.
Even if you're working on your days off.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened to me when I was managing a restaurant here, is that I was assigned certain work hours, and then, there was such a heavy workload that I would stay well beyond the hours that I was essentially getting paid for. And then on my days off, I was still working. It was absolutely nonstop. And in Australia, there's a huge, huge emphasis on 9 to 5 is 9 to 5. And then after work, you go and grab your friends, you go and grab your kids, you head down to the beach, you head out in nature, and you enjoy what life has to offer.
The beautiful beaches of Australia, the community around you. And that's just, it's almost like swept under the rug here. It's a matter of making money. So either making your, basic necessities like met, making sure like that's all taken care of, making sure you can afford your rent, afford your groceries, or it's focusing on like what hustle culture preaches, is working your butt off until you make like multi-millions, but like spending every single waking hour of your day making money in whatever which way you can, which is so unsustainable and so unhealthy.
Well, we were talking about this earlier, and I guess we can sort of, the way in which we can very basically, and obviously this is not all encompassing, but we thought about different ways in which people pursue happiness, right? Mm-hmm. And acquiring wealth was a huge one. It was a massive, in terms of North American culture. I think it's sort of a little bit international as well, but more so here. That's a massive, massive one. And you were mentioning the hustle culture. Can you elaborate on that for people who don't know what that is?
I mean, I'd love to even do like a deep dive about this another time with you, but what essentially it's you want to make as much money as you can. It's spending every waking moment making money, whether that's investing, crypto, making enough money to buy your first real estate, like piece of real estate property. And sure, these are all ways you can make money, but they essentially have it be like that is your focus. You're hustling, whatever, like stay quiet, stay to yourself, make as much money, and then you'll pop up eventually when you have like however much. But so what is that going to take? Like 10 years for you to make your multi-million, so finally you can post on social media and be like, look at what I have?
Like how much is enough?
How much is enough? But also you're going to waste like your 20s, your 30s, whatever it may be, to make a certain dollar amount to finally show off when you're in your 40s or 50s or retired. For what reason? You're going to say no to so many opportunities. You're going to neglect so many friendships in your family along that journey.
Or your kids.
Or you won't even have kids or put them off until maybe it's possibly too late because you're so focused on making money. And sure, having money and being financially secure is one thing, and that's nice, and that takes stress off of you, which in turn gives you a sense of happiness and gives you a sense of peace. But to have that be like your life's mission, that's not sustainable for happiness. And also, if you're putting your happiness on some financial, like on a dollar amount, what is that going to bring you?
Yeah, and I think it goes even further than that. It verges into like wanting other people to see your success, right? We see that so much on social media where people are constantly like portraying this perfect life that they've created, and they're shopping for the latest fashion trends constantly.
The newest iPhone, they're living life lavishly in mansions in Miami or Los Angeles, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But that's so unrealistic. And then also to care about what others think of your happiness in your life. Like, I feel like you almost need to take like a deeper look into why you care about what everyone else thinks. Instead of just focusing on what makes you happy down at your core. And it's taking some time to reflect on that.
Totally. So I think that particular category, the way I would kind of describe it is like just like an instant gratification kind of mindset. That's the way you reach happiness, is just by needing that constant feedback that you're working hard enough, you're looking great, you're doing all the right things, right? That need of instant gratification.
Yeah, which I think, like, it can be nice. Like, sure, little dopamine hits day to day, they make you feel great. Who doesn't love a good, like notification, which has been, like, looked into. Like, people are addicted to their phones because of the instant gratification it gives you. But that's the thing. It's in the name. It's instant. It's not long-term. It's not sustainable. Feels great in the moment, but it's not going to last. Or then you keep chasing that, and then that also becomes unhealthy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the next category we were chatting about was religion and spirituality. And I think the way in which these two kind of like oppose each other is that the acquisition of wealth and the social media aspect of everything is very much about feeling good. And on the flip side, religion and spirituality is more based in doing good, right?
Yeah, and I feel... Now, I believe, I'm like, if I'm to put myself in either category, I'm spiritual. I do think there is good in believing in a higher power. It's nice to be like, everything happens for a reason. The universe will let things play out how they're supposed to play out, and it takes this sort of like pressure or worry about what the next step is, and allows you to like live in the present moment, or at least I find it allows me to do that. And then with that, affirmations and manifestation are really huge in spirituality. And affirmations are great, positive self-talk, affirming just your day will go great, you will be filled with like abundance, whatever it may be. I feel like those, at the end of the day, when you're affirming those positive things, that just kind of puts you in a more positive mindset, and overall just makes you a happier person.
Mm-hmm. I think the reason people gravitate towards organized religion in order to find their happiness is because it removes the onus from yourself, right? So it is no longer you're not doing it for yourself. It removes the individuality from finding happiness, because you're not doing things for you. You're doing things for the higher power in order to live by the values and the morals that they have set for you. And that can be a very a peaceful existence, because it's all laid out for you. All of those steps that are there for you to follow are laid out, and if you just follow those rules, and if you just live by those values, and if you live to please the higher power, God, however you want to refer to them, then you'll be happy, right? That's the mentality, I think. And I mean, if it works for you, no judgment. But
you're also saying there's a bit of guilt that could come along with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the trap in there is if you can't live up to the rules that are set out, if you can't be as perfect as you're supposed to be, if you're not the living your life in that way that you're supposed to, and you can't hold up to those standards, then yeah, I think you can actually live with a lot of guilt, right? And a lot of anxiety about not being good enough, and that can detract from your overall happiness.
I also think just, either or aren't meant for everyone. It's not a one size shoe fits all. It's, if one works for you, great. If it doesn't, look for another path, look for another way to be, or follow things a little bit more loosely and see how that works for you. But it's not going to be for everyone. Whether that's totally not. You're on the spiritual side or you're on the religious side.
It's just about finding your path, right? And what works for you. Love. And
well, one thing you were saying about religion that you really liked is the sense of community it can bring.
That's true. Thanks for reminding me. My brain works too fast sometimes. I think that's a really important thing to mention, actually. So thanks for bringing that back to my attention. That is something that I crave, because as a child, I went to church. I was a member of the Catholic Church. And side note, this is actually a funny story, because I spent a significant part of my childhood living in China, where religion is frowned upon. Organized religion is frowned upon by the government. And so in order to attend Mass, we needed to attend them in embassies. And so every week you'd go to a different embassy, and often it would be the same priest, sometimes not. But yeah, it was a really interesting way to go to church. You could ask me more questions about that if you're interested, but yeah, it was pretty cool. But essentially, when you do go to church, you do have this inbuilt community that supports you through any hardships that you might go through, right? You always have somebody to talk to. You always have somebody to rely on. And now that I'm no longer a member of any sort of organized religion, I miss that. Because when you move to a new city, when you move to a new country, all you have to do is walk into your church and everybody's there for you. I think that's what we're lacking in society as a whole. Like, I wish those sort of communities didn't just exist in an organized religion setting. But yeah.
Well, because even if you go back a little bit, everyone used to know their neighbors, everyone in their building, everyone on their street. Like, everyone just knew everyone. And we've kind of lost that in this day and age of social media. Everyone's just on their phones. They don't really care about their surroundings, or places are just becoming way too congested where you can't keep up. So times are changing.
They sure are.
You want to dive into love, which I feel like the community aspect of religion ties perfectly into.
Yeah, I agree with that. I did want to dive into love. and into...
We love love.
We do love love. And interpersonal relationships. And what you were talking about just at the end there, about society needing to kind of hopefully one day revert back to those like living situations where you do live in a community, was something that I found really cool about Chinese culture. And a lot of Asian cultures actually practice this, where you often live with your parents or your grandparents. You live as like an extended family unit in one home or in one compound. And it's actually like hugely beneficial to, you know, in terms of like, if you have kids, then your parents can help you with your childcare. But also, as your parents age, you can look after them in the same way that they look after you. And you have that like little inbuilt village, rather than, you know, in North American culture where you're like, okay, time for you to, you know, go to a home.
As soon as you can afford one.
Savage.
Right? But yeah, it's about like moving out at 18 when you go off to college. Go off to college, as I say in quotation marks. And then after that, you find an apartment, you find a house, whatever it may be. So yeah, it's just kind of moving out of your parents as soon as possible, which is the complete opposite.
Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of interpersonal relationships and love, we see a lot of emphasis, I think, particularly in the media that we consume. Like a lot of Hollywood movies are all about, you know, finding your soulmate and finding your love. And then society has this sort of prescribed idea of nuclear families, you know, husband, wife, couple of kids, you know, and that's your ideal. And so I think a lot of people still really strive for that, for that sort of existence. And it can make people really unhappy when, you know, it doesn't work out the way that they had expected it to work out, you know, when they get to their 30s and they're not married and they don't have kids yet. And it's just like, you feel like you're falling behind.
Which is something we should definitely aim to change, because there's so much to friendships and, you know, just everyone along the way to that journey. And also, your end goal doesn't have to be marriage. It doesn't have to be kids. I want that. That's a personal thing. But I'm also in a place in my 20s right now where I'm focusing on friendships and building a community around me. So that way I'm super satisfied before I get to that point.
Exactly.
And thus have an even bigger circle around me. And I feel like that just, people don't put the emphasis on the journey enough, or they don't put the focus onto current friendships or relationships, or whether that be your neighbor Greg down the street who you see like once a week, I don't know, but like the little things, like just taking that time like they do in Europe, like they do in Australia, bringing your friends together, bringing your family together, and putting time and energy into that instead of chasing the future.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
It's as cliche as it sounds, it's, you know, it's the little things, it's the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the last one is going to please any American viewers that we have. Freedom.
And what we have of it.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, I think we're really lucky in the Western world to be able to And when I mean freedom, the way I'm trying the way I'm trying to articulate it is that you get to be whoever you want to be. You get to express yourself in terms of your gender identity, who you want to love, whatever your dreams are, you can go and follow those. There, you have the opportunity to be and to do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. There's definitely some limitations where some of our freedom in some places in North America are trying to be revoked, but we also do have a lot more than some other places in the world.
Mm-hmm. Vancouver. Excellent impression.
Thank you. I was a car in my previous life. I'll be a dog next. That's the goal.
That's the good life, for sure.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a really important part of happiness is having that freedom to live your life however you want to live it, right?
Yeah, it's like I can imagine being in a world where things are more structured and you have to live life in like a little box almost. Mm-hmm. You're forced into it, whether that be your self-expression or just in your life decisions where you don't have a say. I would feel so miserable, and I imagine anyone else who would live like that or are currently living like that don't feel great. Mm-hmm. So
that's something we're very privileged to have, and it's important to acknowledge that privilege for sure. Mm-hmm.
No.
I guess the big question.
Are you happy?
Yeah. I'm really happy, actually. I will say, I think there is something to be said for being born happy. I think some people, as part of their personality, as part of their character, are born with a predilection for happiness, and others maybe not so. But I would put myself in the category of people who are just naturally happy. And I guess the way in which that has manifested in my life is that when I have been confronted by hardships, I have addressed them and gone through them with optimism and positivity. And so that's how I know that I will continue to face any future obstacles that might come along. And that's why I can confidently answer that I am happy.
Nice.
What about you? Are you happy?
I'm happy. There's definitely things that could use some improving. I love to travel more and see the world, and I feel like that'll offer me so much added insight and perspective that'll take my little spaceship to real happy land. I don't know. Face a little money insecurity sometimes. I'm so privileged and so grateful that I will always have a roof over my head and always food on the table, but there's still some areas where I could prosper a little bit more. But overall, I'm a 21-year-old who's lucky enough to have time to spend with friends and family as much as I would like. I don't have to overwork myself to make ends meet, and for that I'm really privileged and really grateful, and I am currently really happy.
That's good.
Yeah. I think it's also about balance as well. I feel like that, wherever you are in your life, I think adding a little bit of balance in wherever you can, whether that's some physical exercise, 'cause that's good for your overall well-being, but it'll also just really help how you feel and your overall happiness levels, and putting good food into your body and little treats when you can.
The treats are important.
I have a sweet tooth.
Yeah.
And yeah, just making time for friends and family and love wherever your time allows. Just finding balance anywhere you can.
Mm-hmm.
In the little moments.
And that's your secret to happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and appreciating the little things.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned this earlier. Gratitude.
An attitude of gratitude.
There we go.
An attitude of gratitude.
Just make time for the little things. Be grateful for the little things.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, that ties into self-care. I remember back in high school, I had this unit, whatever, in some sort of like figuring out life class about prioritizing self-care and finding your own routine. And for me, that was going from my 7-hour day at school to my part-time job afterwards. Always, every single day, without failure, I would pick myself up a London Fog. I was known at a cafe as the London Fog girl. I'd walk in, they're like, "You regular?" And I was like, "Yes, indeed." You know it. But it was just a part of my little self-care routine. It was a way to kind of like refresh myself before, my next little bit of work.
Mm-hmm.
Just little things.
It is the little
Now
things.
it's making my morning cup of coffee. Smells, the first sip, the deliciousness. The energy it gives me.
You want to make this girl happy, you get her a London Fog flavored anything.
That or a vanilla latte, hot or iced. Either or.
Just in case.
In case there's any men out there that are trying to win me over. Who knows? But yeah, that's my secret sauce.
That's your secret sauce. Nice.
Do you have any other secret sauce to add to the
I do.
little burger we call it? I don't know what I'm going on about.
What are you
I need to
talking
stop.
about?
Happy Land, the burger we go with. I must be stopped. Anyways.
Are you hungry right now? Is that what's going
I
on?
have donuts in my bag, and more specifically, London Fog donut with my name on it.
Told you.
So,
I told
there
you.
we go. There we go.
To me, the secret to happiness. Why are you laughing at me?
I thought you were gonna say secret sauce again. I couldn't handle it. Your secret, yeah.
My secret to happiness. I think happiness is found when you stop seeking it. And there's a quote that I absolutely love about this. And it's, "Inhale happiness in the air you breathe." And for me, what that means is that rather than focusing on those milestones, on achievements, on future goals, on all of these dreams and aspirations that you have, on doing all the things that you think are going to make you happy, stop waiting for it and stop constantly running after it. It's already here. It already exists within you. The more you chase after whatever your idea of happiness is, the more this anxiety and discomfort builds within you. And it becomes increasingly unattainable. And so it's really just about changing that mindset and realizing that you can choose to see that it's already here. It's already there for you.
I think that's so important. I mean, that kind of just that follows along with what I said earlier about, the journey. It's really about the journey. It's a cliche, but it's one for a reason.
Cliches exist for a reason.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that too.
It's the little things and it's the journey. If you're going to take anything away, it's that.
Okay, well, we'd love to know what makes you happy. If anything we said resonated. If it didn't as well.
Or your little self-care routine.
That's a nice one.
Yeah, I'd love some ideas.
I'd love some
I'd love
ideas
to
too.
add to mine.
I'm always open.
Me too.
Okay.
We're open-minded people.
We sure are. All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day.
Be happy.
Okay. Thanks for watching. As always, we really appreciate your input, so feel free to reach out to us with any feedback, comments, or suggestions for future episodes.
If you'd like to support us, please subscribe and leave a rating and review on your favorite platform so you stay connected and up to date.
See you next week.